An old pervert transfers his mind to a woman with the help of a demonic power, just to satisfy his sexual needs. A psychiatrist's peaceful life gets destroyed when she encounters a strange patient whose father is a demon worshipper and uses demonic powers to take control of other people's bodies. Will she be able to survive? Strap in, movie enthusiasts, it's recap time. Today, we will be recapping a film named Suitable Flesh from the year 2023. I hope you enjoy the video, so let's start. The story begins in an autopsy room, where Dr. Daniela, a psychiatrist, and Mr. Stewart, a forensic expert, are observing the corpse of a deceased male. The male has allegedly died at the hands of Dr. Elizabeth, a fellow psychiatrist and friend of Dr. Daniela. Elizabeth has been arrested and placed in a special psychiatric ward. Daniela goes to have a talk with Elizabeth, accompanied by 2 armed security guards. When Daniela enters the secluded room, she finds Elizabeth murmuring words to herself. Suddenly, Elizabeth turns around abruptly and asks Daniela if the body has died or not. Daniela responds that the autopsy is being done. This infuriates Elizabeth, and she wants to tell Daniela something, but the guards prevent her from approaching. Daniela then orders the guards to leave the room to talk to Elizabeth in private. Daniela says to Elizabeth that she is suffering from schizophrenia, but Elizabeth starts narrating her entire story to make Daniela believe what happened. Elizabeth begins telling her story from the beginning. Elizabeth is living a peaceful life. She has a successful career and a great husband. Indeed, everything a human thinks of as a perfect, ideal life. She is a highly professional psychiatrist who has written top-notch books in the field of psychiatry. But one day, a strange patient comes to her office. At first, she observes him exhibiting symptoms resembling schizophrenia. He introduces himself as Asa Waite and tells her that he is a psychology student who has read a lot of her books. He expresses the belief that he is in demonic possession, explaining that his father aims to take control of his body with the help of a demon, compelling him to commit horrifying acts. Elizabeth instructs him to calm down, but Asa's peculiar behavior starts to instill fear in her. Asa shares his home address, pleading for help. Suddenly, Asa's phone rings, and when he answers the call, he begins twitching and experiences an episode of epilepsy. After a minute, he stabilizes and asks Elizabeth where he is. Elizabeth inquires if he remembers anything he shared with her, but he denies knowing anything. Then he starts looking at Elizabeth in a lecherous manner. Despite the unsettling encounter, Elizabeth gives him her number and tells him to contact her when needed. Later at the dinner table that night, Elizabeth shares the incident with her husband, Edward, about the strange patient she encountered. Edward reassures her, suggesting that she should not worry and should live her life stress-free. However, it becomes evident that Elizabeth is strangely attracted to Asa, as she continues to experience hallucinations about him. The next day, Elizabeth goes to visit Asa's home. She knocks at the door, but nobody answers. Since the door is unlocked, she enters the house herself. The place seems quite eerie. Suddenly, she comes across Asa's father, Ephraim, in a dire situation as he sits unconscious in his chair. The old man pleads for his medicines, and Elizabeth quickly administers his sublingual medications. She notices the prescription, identifying that he has not only a heart condition, but also cancer. Elizabeth inquires about Asa's whereabouts, and Ephraim informs her that Asa left many days ago, and he doesn't know where he is. Elizabeth urges him to cooperate, emphasizing that Asa needs clinical care. Instead of cooperating, Ephraim inappropriately touches her. Elizabeth notices a book on the table with strange pictures and asks him about it. In response, the old man becomes agitated, asking her to leave. He grabs a big knife and stabs Elizabeth's hand. Terrified, Elizabeth rushes out of the house. Ephraim takes the knife with Elizabeth's blood and places it on the book, causing it to dissolve magically. The next day, Elizabeth is in the middle of a session with other clients when Asa unexpectedly arrives at her office. She briefly leaves the appointment to comfort Asa, assuring him that she will help in any way possible. Elizabeth asks him to wait for a minute since she is in the middle of an appointment. However, When she finishes the session, Asa is nowhere to be found. At night, Elizabeth receives a phone call from Asa claiming he needs help. Despite her husband's insistence that the police should handle the case, Elizabeth, deeply attached to Asa, expresses her desire to treat him personally and avoids involving the police. She rushes to Asa's house and finds Ephraim lying unconscious on the floor. Elizabeth immediately calls 911, but as she begins to explain the situation, Asa arrives, throwing her phone and insisting she should not help his father. Asa then grabs a knife, but Elizabeth calms him down, assuring that she can fix everything. She demands Ephraim's pills from Asa, who attempts to stop her. Despite Asa's resistance, she manages to retrieve the pills and gives them to Ephraim. Suddenly, Ephraim regains consciousness and seizes Asa by the neck, chanting unusual spells. Asa and Ephraim tremble, and their bodies undergo an eerie exchange. Now, in Asa's body, Ephraim starts flirting with Elizabeth. Ensnared by what seems like a spell, Elizabeth succumbs to his advances. Asa, now in Ephraim's body, disappears from the scene, while Ephraim, in Asa's body, rushes off to find Asa. Elizabeth opens the strange book she saw earlier and encounters an evil octopus-shaped demon within its pages, which terrifies her, causing her to drop the book. On the floor, she discovers a basement passageway. As she opens it, Asa, now in Ephraim's body, emerges suddenly, crying for help. Simultaneously, Ephraim, in Asa's body, arrives and fatally cuts Asa's throat. A fire begins to spread in the house, prompting Elizabeth to run out screaming. The next day, Elizabeth seeks mental health support from her colleague, Dr. Daniela, explaining the events of the previous night. However, Daniela dismisses her account, attributing it to schizophrenia, and suggests that Elizabeth apologize to her husband for any perceived infidelity. Daniela gives Elizabeth a new shirt and advises her to go home to rest. Upon returning home, Elizabeth finds two police investigators, Officer Huxley and Detective Ledger, who are conducting an investigation into the previous night's incident. Detective Ledger hands Elizabeth her phone, recovered from the crime scene, and asks if she had any involvement. Elizabeth denies any connection, asserting that she left before the events unfolded. The officers leave, stating they will return if further questions arise. Elizabeth then tells Edward about what happened the previous night. Edward becomes depressed and says he doesn't want to talk to her before leaving. To clarify, Asa has died, and Ephraim is now in Asa's body. Ephraim ties himself up in the basement and calls Elizabeth. When she answers the call, Ephraim utters strange spells, resulting in the switching of their bodies. Now in Elizabeth's body, Ephraim begins to behave inappropriately, touching her private parts. Elizabeth, in Asa's body, discovers eerie cult objects in the basement, realizing that something demonic is at play. She calls Daniela and urgently asks for help, providing her with the address. Despite Daniela's initial disbelief, she reluctantly decides to come. In the meantime, Ephraim, in Elizabeth's body, starts seducing Edward in a strange manner. Daniela arrives at the basement, and Elizabeth tries to explain the situation. Initially skeptical, Daniela begins to believe Elizabeth when she shares some intimate details about Daniela's private life, convincing her that she is indeed Elizabeth. In the meantime, police officers arrive at Elizabeth's home and begin interrogating her about the incident. They notice a knife on the table, adding to their suspicions. Elizabeth is smoking cigarettes, which is unusual for her. In the middle of the interrogation, something horrifying occurs. Both the bodies of Elizabeth and Ephraim interchange once again. Daniela and the police officers become perplexed by the bizarre events unfolding before them. Ephraim, now in Asa's body, instructs Daniela to leave. When Daniela questions him about their recent conversation, he denies having any knowledge of it. Meanwhile, in Elizabeth's place, Edward questions her about the strange things she did. Uncomfortable with the situation, Elizabeth leaves the house. This has a serious impact on Elisabeth's mental health, and she goes to her office and decides to jump from the ceiling. In a desperate moment, she writes a letter to Edward explaining her feelings. Just as she is about to carry out her plan, Ephraim, now in Asa's body, arrives and intervenes, preventing her from attempting suicide. He says that he wants to occupy her body to gain sexual gratification. Ephraim gives her the knife and tells her to kill him if she can. Elisabeth readily grabs the knife, and through some light reflection, she hallucinates Ephraim and then stabs him right in the head. This results in a confrontation, and she manages to throw him out of the window. He falls to the ground but is still breathing. Elisabeth then starts her car and attempts to roll over Ephraim to kill him. However, he still survives. She then jumps over him and repeatedly stabs him with the knife. In the meantime, the police arrive and arrest her. Now, the story shifts to the present scene where Elisabeth is talking with Daniela. She explains to Daniela that they need to destroy the brain of the body to stop the transformation. However, the half-mutilated body of Asa starts to come back to life. Elisabeth trembles, and the bodies switch again. Stuart, the forensic expert, runs away screaming upon seeing the reanimated dead body. Elisabeth, now in the mutilated body, tries to crawl towards Daniela. In the same room, Ephraim has now occupied Elisabeth's body. He starts flirting with Daniela, who hastily leaves, suspecting that the bodies may have been switched. She discovers Elisabeth crumbling on the floor, calls for paramedics, and begins performing CPR. Unfortunately, the body dies. Daniela, furious, returns to Ephraim and confronts him for his heinous action. Ephraim scratches her neck, causing her to bleed, and starts casting a spell. This results in another exchange of bodies. Both of them start fighting and move out of the chamber. A security guard arrives at the scene, and Ephraim, now in Daniela's body, tries to steal the gun from him. The guard resists, and the gun falls to the floor. Taking advantage of the situation, Daniela, now in Elisabeth's body, snatches the gun. As she is about to shoot at Ephraim, the mutilated body of Asa comes back to life. Daniela emotionally bids farewell to Elisabeth and euthanizes her by firing at the head. Ephraim then casts the spell again, initiating another shift of bodies. Now in Elisabeth's body, Ephraim shoots the guard 3 times, killing him. As he is about to shoot at Daniela, the gun becomes empty. He then lunges at Daniela, attempting to choke her. In the meantime, the police forces arrive and defuse the situation. Later, we see Edward in Daniela's office discussing Elisabeth. Daniela states that Elisabeth, who was more than a friend to her, developed mental health issues, leading her to commit multiple murders. Edward finds it hard to believe, knowing Elisabeth well and thinking she would never do such things. Daniela suggests that he should start a new life and leave his wife behind. She then inappropriately touches him, but Edward leaves without responding. Daniela then sits in her chair and starts smoking. It is now revealed that Ephraim is in Daniela's body and Daniela is in Elisabeth's body. Daniela is screaming in the locked-up, secluded psychiatric ward, desperately calling for help. Thank you for being a part of Black's Movie Recaps. If these tales of mystery and intrigue sent shivers down your spine, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Black's Movie Recaps for more bone-chilling narratives. Stay tuned, and until next time, stay captivated.